That's our brand director on a Grab scooter in Bangkok traffic, first time in Asia, possibly last time on a scooter, and we went there for a coffee festival, and as majority of the coffee festivals it isn't worth it financially, but we came anyway. We do coffee festivals very regularly, I would say once in a couple of times, and we went all over Europe already for festivals in Spain, in Netherlands, Poland, Czech Republic, Greece, and we've been a couple of times in Dubai, and now it was the first Asian festival that we were actually exhibiting, because we went to Indonesia as visitors too, and they all look very similar. It's just you come to a huge hall or warehouse where you have a roasters village, where it's smaller stands where roasteries are displaying their products and you can come and taste their coffees. Then you have bigger stands of usually bigger companies and manufacturers of some equipment or some merchandise, for example, or maybe some green beans distributor that are looking to build B2B business. And then usually you also have some barista championship happening on the way, so it's also making it a little bit more exciting than just a trade show. Mostly it's all industry crowd. You rarely see any guys who just like drinking coffee and they decided to come for the coffee festival. So it's usually very professional, it's very sales oriented. That's why it's very exhausting to be there and communicate for the whole 3 days, and usually you try to protect yourself from salespeople. And this time we went to World of Coffee in Bangkok. And asking whether festivals having any direct ROI, I would say that no, we never saw any, and probably it may be different for different roasteries, but for us, as we never actually target B2B sales as much, we never see the huge expenses that we have during these trips to pay off, because setting up a stand somewhere in Europe would cost you probably like 5+ euros, because it's first you pay for the stand and it's usually probably like a couple of thousands euros if it's a small stand on the Roasters Village. But then the big part is travel expense for the whole company, plus you are using a lot of materials. So yeah, probably the average festival would cost 5 to 10,000 euros. And I think majority of brands are hoping to find partners, but I don't really think anyone can pay off this expense with B2B leads coming from the festival, unless it's a really rare case. We've never paid it off in years, but we still keep coming for the festivals. But Bangkok Coffee Festival was different for us. Firstly, it was very far away from any of our market of interest, but this time we didn't have our own stand, but we were probably, let's call it fly-in roaster, or we were a partner at the other guy's stand. It's a Czech Chinese company that are producing double milk, which is just very intense milk. So they had a huge stand on the festival in Bangkok, and they were one of the main sponsors, and they needed someone who would participate with them and make the coffee with their milk. So they invited us because we had some relationship before from previous festivals, and that's why for us it was no costs of the stand, which we saved probably a lot of money. But also then, because of that, we didn't have a lot of visibility. We had some logos on the stand, we had some TV screen time, and of course our packaging and us being there, but it wasn't as visible as it could be if it would be our own stand. But I think this trip was actually very interesting because we were making the coffee non-stop. We've made over 1,000 coffee for the 3 days until we ran out actually of coffee beans and milk and cups. We ran out of everything. We got somewhere about 500 new followers on Instagram, which is nice, but nothing extra. But we met with some people that might be actually helping us to one day expand into Thai market. We also met with a lot of Indonesian guys, because for some reason there were really a lot of Indonesians in the Thai coffee festival. I actually also enjoyed making the coffee with the double milk, because we were mainly making jerseys, so it's basically we're pouring this milk and then we're pouring shot of espresso on top, and it doesn't really mix, and that's why it's called jersey. It's very interesting flavor. We used the double milk for some seasonal drinks before, but now we're considering to actually add it in some regular menu and see what we can do from there. But even though we come to the festivals with no real reasons to sell, I think it's an amazing thing for us to show some extra visibility, and it's like investing in branding, investing in brand awareness, whatever. So while people are seeing you often and often and often, it helps to one day to actually make a bigger collaboration, because I think one of these deals will eventually pay off with some big partnership on one specific country, where we come and we find a partner who will open with us in one of the Asian markets, for example, and by that we will then eventually pay off all of these visibility expenses. But also big value for this trip was that I finally could take my brand director to the Asian trip, because it was his first time in Asia, and we can go around the coffee shops, we can go and see different places, and we can actually finally come to the same level of understanding how coffee market is, because explaining it one thing, but showing this is another. And I think for him it was very important to know how the market can differ and what we can pick it up to involve into our own company. But also within these 3 days I've made more coffee than for the last couple of years, and it's also interesting experience for me to get back to the coffee machine and just pull the shots non-stop. It's super fun, in my next life I might be a barista. And just because we went to Bangkok, our goal was not to go to Bangkok Coffee Festival, but going to Bangkok and enjoying the city itself. Again, every time I'm in Asia, I'm super excited about riding the scooters from coffee shop to coffee shop. But the Bangkok itself is probably one of the coolest cities for coffee and for the coffee brand to be present, just because the density of nice coffee shops is so high that I haven't seen that in Europe. If we talk about per square kilometer or whatever. But also the average rate of coffee shop is very nice in terms of coffee, but also very nice in terms of designing, in terms of the interiors, in terms of the the spaces itself, because they're all built in this Asian kind of style, which is very unusual for Europe. So we managed not to only visit coffees and just try the normal coffees, but we've tasted finally a lot of Thai coffees. By Thai I mean the beans coming from Thailand, and that's what we rarely can find in Europe, and it's something very exciting. It's very fresh and new, I would say, for our taste. So we were very happy tasting Thai coffees on daily basis. Another small achievement we've accomplished is that I brought the guys to Kurasu. It's a Japanese, let's call it, boutique specialty coffee chain. They have a few different shops in different countries. Some of them they have in Indonesia, and I visited them all in Indonesia, but they are originated from Japan, and they have a store in Bangkok. Very beautiful store, very nicely maintained. It's I would say architecturally very appealing, and this is something we want to kind of inspire on building our next stores. By the way, last year we have almost opened in Asia. That time it was in Indonesia. We were considering to open in Jakarta a few stores. We had the trademark set up. We had the team of managers ready with us to go and launch. We even viewed some locations and we were almost ready to sign, but I've backed up on the last moment just to figure out that probably for us Jakarta is not the best market to enter the first in Asia, because even though I have a lot of connections with my friends in there and I would be pretty sure we could manage it nicely, the issue is that in Jakarta itself, even though the coffee market is crazy, but it's mainly the coffee market on the lower price segment, which is like €1 per coffee. So we decided to skip Jakarta and maybe go to the other market, but also maybe in a year or two while we are finalizing our concept in Europe. But also we have some markets in Europe that we want to focus on before we are defocusing on Asian market. But every time watching the after the trips in Thailand or reading the news from Indonesia, because it's always like every couple of months something crazy is happening in the coffee industry in Indonesia, I'm always having the crazy FOMO feeling that shit, we probably shouldn't have skipped that and opened in there, because since opening a first store in a market, it would be much easier to expand than to the other similar markets in Southeast Asia. So kind of finalizing the trip, it was very tough in terms of the flights and jet lags, because it was a very short trip also. And so yeah, no direct financial ROI from the trip, which we expected. 500 new followers, that's nice. We had actually improved relationship with MilBoc, considering now to add it to the menu, and I think that's going to be interesting if we actually finally will go for that. But the most important, I have a scared brand director that finally see what true Asia means and what the shops are, especially the shops that he was watching on Instagram and never had a chance to attend. But also it's good not because we went there and it was nice, but also because when you see something on Instagram, and you have a tendency to overestimate it, and then once you come to the chains, like for example went to La Cabra or the same Kurasu, you come there, yeah, it's a very nice coffee shop, but it's nothing really extra. So you just then your balance of expectations is getting back to where it should be. So keep being questionable whether we should have opened there last year or not. I really cannot take this FOMO out, but I'm pretty sure we will have a shop in Thailand, we will shop in Indonesia relatively soon. Probably we're talking about a couple of years, depends whether we go there ourselves or we go there with a franchise project, but just not yet. We have to be patient and let it rest for a bit. Okay, thanks a lot for watching. I'm finally back in Prague. The weather is not as nice as in Bangkok. On the other hand, it's not as hot. Thanks guys, thank you for the follows, thank you for the likes, and I hope you to see in the next video. I appreciate your comments. Bye bye.